tonight. First question, I want to get into the war in Ukraine. Now, under your administration, there was world peace. We didn't have all this chaos in the world. Now it seems like it's escalating even to Crimea is even in the question. You've said before on social media and at speeches that you have a solution, and you said, hey, this can be negotiated. How do we do that?
Well, first of all, it should have never started. It would have never started had I been president. There was no chance of this war starting. And frankly, I don't think Putin wanted to do it. I think he was sort of forced in by the statements being made by Biden. And it's something so sad to see, because no matter what happens now, it can never be like it could have been, with nobody dead and with no cities demolished. Because you look at some of these cities, they're absolutely in ashes. There's one city, they were flying over it. There was not one building standing. So it should have never, ever happened, but it did happen. With that being said, it can be negotiated, I think, within 24 hours. It really has to be done from the office of the president. And you have to get them both in a room. And there are things you can say to each one of them, which I won't reveal now, which will guarantee that this war will end immediately. And they have to do it, because what's happening is a horror. It's a horror. And far more people are being killed than what they're talking about. You know, they're talking about numbers that are nothing by comparison to what the real numbers are. When they knock down those big apartment houses, and when they knock out cities and they say 2 people died or 3 people were hurt, that's not right. So I think the numbers are far greater. That'll be revealed at a later date. But we have to do something about it. That war has to stop, and it has to stop now. And it's easy to do.
We talk to a lot of Americans, obviously, and they're concerned about we just keep sending money. It's a blank check, that there's no audit, there's no checks and balances. Obviously, you would be for auditing Ukraine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're sending probably at least 10 times what Europe has sent. I believe we're really at $107 billion, maybe more than that. And Europe is at a tiny fraction of that number. And obviously, Europe's affected much more than we are. They're right there. They're closer. You look at Germany, it's always been very hard to get them involved, and others have been very, very difficult to get them involved. And the numbers are not fair. It's just not fair to the United States. And I feel horribly for the people of Ukraine. I feel horribly for the people of Russia. I mean, everybody's suffering, and it's got to get solved. But when you look at the United States, with maybe 10 times the amount, it's a number that's astronomical, the difference. It's very much like NATO. When I got involved with NATO, most of the countries weren't paying, or they were not paying their fair share. There were only 7 countries that were paying their fair share. And I said, that's not going to be. And within a short period of time, we had hundreds of billions of dollars being sent in. And nobody else was able to do it. Not Bush, not Obama, nobody. And I got it done. I had one meeting, and then the second meeting I went. I had to get a little... I had to gain a little bit of knowledge, but I did notice, I said, why aren't these people paid up? I used the word delinquent. They were delinquent. And when I went in the second time, I said, look, we have a problem. Nobody's paying. You're not paying your fair share. The United States was paying for everybody, in a sense. I mean, I believe the United States was paying close to 100% of NATO. So ridiculous. And it really is a protection of Europe. And so I would say that, we got to be smarter. And the money they have is money that I got. The reason they have money right now, I believe we got $440 billion paid into NATO in a fairly short period of time. They asked the question, well, does that mean that if we're not paid, the United States will not defend us against Russia if something should happen? I said, you mean you're not paid up? Yes, sir. They said, that's what it means. We will not defend you. And money poured in like nobody's ever seen. And the Secretary General, the gentleman that runs it, Stoltenberg, who's a good man, he said, I think he's my biggest fan. Now, he may not be anymore because, politically it may not be correct for him to say, oh, Trump was great. What he said was, there's never been anything like it. I've never seen anything like it, because he's been there a long time and other people before him. And you take a look and you ask him, and you should ask him, because if his answer is the same, he said, I never saw anything like it. It was amazing. So they have the money to do what they're doing now because of what I did with the countries that were not